and came across this bizarre place called the Berkeley Psychic Institute, where I had this strong sense. I mean, it sounds sort of crazy, but this is how it played out. And I went, I've got to stay. And I ended up staying and did their program. Was introduced to another movement form called the Nia technique, which I then went on to train in years later.
Nia dance.
Oh yes, you know Nia. Yeah.
Yes, I really love it.
I know. Yes. So I was introduced to that around the same time I was learning about clairvoyance. So I was starting to change my relationship with my body. And Nia was giving me a way back into movement that was based around joy and took all that pressure of performance. So this was happening. I had gotten married and it wasn't going well. I wasn't really happy. And when I look back, I can now see it wasn't an empowered choice for me, but I'd sort of fallen into it. And because we wanted to legalize my situation, I needed a green card. That became a part of the story. So we made a move from the West Coast to the East Coast in an attempt to kind of, I guess, get on with our life and marriage. And it was the beginning of the end, really. And I went to, I had a smear test and I hadn't had that done in years for some reason. And in the States, they don't have the NHS. So you have to have health insurance. And I don't think we'd had any, and I can't remember what the circumstances were, but we had health insurance suddenly. So I went and had a smear test, came back abnormal. And then more investigations were done, and it was showing to be a very serious kind of cervical cancer. So I sort of tell this part of the story because it leads up to where I made the decision. And as we were going through the process, I realized that I didn't want to do anything that was being suggested. And I took a week, I think it was after the diagnosis, and I had a week where I didn't really talk to anyone and I sort of drifted in and out of meditation. So I had some foundational pieces in place around the mind-body work. And as I did this and started to sort of trust myself and my body a bit more, came out of that week and I had 2 pieces of awareness. I thought, I need to go back to the UK and I need to leave this marriage. And so I did. And I also had this thought, are we allowed to swear?
Yes. I hope so.
I never know now. But literally this thought went through my head of, fuck that. Cancer's not taking me out. When I go, it's on my terms. And that kind of set the precedence for everything. And then I came back to the UK. Took me a while to kind of pull myself out of my
readjust.
Yeah. And things unfolded from there. So I didn't have that. I know some people, the C word is a big word for people. It's full of emotion and there's a lot of fear. And I think conventional medicine doesn't always help that with their approach. And I remember going through the process with the doctors who were, very highly trained and adamant in their position. And I think what gave me the space was I moved from where I had the diagnosis, which was the States, back to the UK and made the decision not to get involved with doctors. And I thought,
right.
It was like I went, right, it's showtime. The dancer in me. And I
came out.
I remember hearing this, it's showtime, all that stuff I've been learning over the last few years. Let's see if it works.
Okay.
So it sort of became my own science experiment.
And do you think that coming back here was psychologically, because we have the NHS and we're very blessed to have a medical system here that serves us, and we don't have to have that full-on insurance to be able to go and see a doctor So do you think on some level that even though you didn't take that route, that coming home was just like, you knew if you needed something, you could you could reach
It
out,
could
and there wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a conscious thought. I think coming home, especially back into the family home, and somebody said to me, at some point around that time, it's like a salmon swimming home to do that
Yeah.
healing. And
And coming back to do the past
yeah,
work and inner child work and being at home
yeah,
in the womb.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's what it was. I needed to be in a safe, unconditional space, even though the family were a bit like, oh my God, you know, they're my parents are sort of conventional down the, to a T. So me coming back from what essentially is classed as a cult out in the States and saying, I've got this massive diagnosis and this is what I'm going to do. And not knowing I didn't know if I was actually going to survive. I just knew I didn't want to have a hysterectomy and radiation of the ovaries, removal of the lymph nodes. And I also instinctively knew that all of that surgery wasn't going to shift the imbalance that was going on in my whole system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is what
Yeah.
needed dealing with. And I didn't know how that was going to come about, what I was going to need, but I just kind of had those pieces. And I knew I wasn't happy in my life. I wasn't doing anything. So I sort of gradually put these pieces together as I made
Yeah.
the decision. Yeah.
And so what did you do first of all? What was the first practice that you'd say that was the primary practice for you to shift?
I think it started when I was out in Maine. So this is where we were living when I got the diagnosis. And I was out walking one day in the snow. It was winter, and winter lasts for about 4 months out there. Sort of, no, 5 months. It kind of goes from December round to May. And I heard this voice in my head say, I want to go faster. And I'd never been a runner, and I think probably as a child at school. And I realized that my body wanted to move, and I wasn't moving. I wasn't really moving at the time. And I took up running, and I became a runner. And literally for that first year, I ran every single day. And I think I have such a love of running. And I actually wrote an article for a running magazine called The Fix, which is all about how that came about. Where it was the simplest form of reconnection to my body. All I needed
Yeah.
was a pair of shoes and somewhere to go. And I still, when I talk about movement with people, because I think running gets a bad rap because people's knees get affected, but it's often to do with the way they're running rather than the actual process of running. So it gave me so much. I could put my shoes on and I would just go, and it became a form of meditation as well, where I couldn't sit still to start with because there was so much coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing that I reconnected with. And when I couldn't do anything else, or when the emotion was too much, I put my shoes on and would go for a run. And we're not talking marathon, we're talking my level of run, walk, whatever I was doing at the time. And that then led to, I looked at my nutrition, which comprised of me going to the library to start with to get a book out. I think I must have, it's always recollecting all the different things I did. Oh, I did some research online, and I found a woman in Florida who'd had a very similar diagnosis to me, healed herself holistically, and set up her own practice.
Wow.
So I decided to contact her. This is also while I was still in Maine. And I contacted her and we had a chat. And I instinctively knew she wasn't the right person for me to work with, but I needed that connection to know that what I was looking
Someone
for,
else had
yeah,
trailblazed.
exactly.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
remember printing her story out and having it in my hand luggage when I was on the plane.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really powerful because that was 19 years
yeah.
ago, and that's like powerful. I mean, now we know there's mindset work, visualization, there's so many tools, and of course we knew it then. I mean, I knew it then, but it wasn't as popularized.
Not
And
mainstream,
so
was it? No.
no, it wasn't as, that's the go-to, doctors now are saying visualize and meditate. So 19 years ago, that was a big move to make, to print that out and know it could be your story.
Yeah. It just, having that gave me the confidence and to go, okay, I can do my own version of this. And
Yes.
yeah. And so that was, so I started, and then I did some research, I think, and I learned about one of the things from a nutrition perspective for cancer is the idea of starving any tumors in the body. So this is removing fat, sugar, salt, wheat, meat, dairy, basically all the fun things that we like to eat. And I, as a teenager, had a history of disordered eating patterns from growing up in the ballet world with all of the body image issues. And I'd kind of healed elements of that. So I wasn't actually best pleased that I was going to be heading down another dietary road again.
Yes.
And I followed a group called the Nutritional Cancer Therapy Trust, who had a very sort of strict dietary format involving lots of juicing. And I did that for about 6 months. They were amazing. The guy, I can't remember his name. I wish I could, because he had written a book called Cancer is Big Business, which is all about how the drugs companies were making money out of cancer. So, and that had become his life's work. So that was, and
it opened your world.
Yeah, it did. And that's exactly what I try to explain to people when I tell them the story and they go, oh, and I go, no, it made me.
No. Yes.
It gave me the opportunity to become the person I am today.
Because on some level, you believed that you can heal yourself.
Yeah.
You knew you could heal yourself.
Yeah.
And that set you on a journey of research and self-empowerment.
Yeah.
And taking full responsibility for your body.
Yes.
For your life.
Yeah. I literally, when I describe it to people, I say I ripped the floorboards up of who I thought I was.
Right.
And rewired the entire, pulled the computer apart and just kind of it's and there was no sort of blueprint really. I didn't know what was going to come out of it. There were things I'd known from childhood that I enjoyed. So there were reconnections back, and movement has always been a massive part of my world. So reconnecting with movement, and then I went back into dance in a different way and trained to teach, and that became a whole thing. So it was that, but it was also, I think, really being prepared to almost a state of surrender to say, okay, I don't know this path, show me. And I was guided, there was serendipitous connections, and different people were placed in my path along the way that were helpful. And gradually I put together this, I guess you would call it a program now, but at the time, you just,
it was your method.
Yeah, going from one thing to the next. And
did people start reaching out to you, seeing the results that you had, or was it the other way around? Was it, I've done this and now I'm going to offer it, or was it people coming to you?
I'd say it's a combination of both. I was never really kind of loud and proud with it. I would say I got to a point 4 years down the line when I woke up one morning and thought, I think it's time to go get a smear test. And I went back into the world of doctors and I got a smear test and it came back clear. And as a family, we had a big party, and but it kind of, there wasn't, I always think there was no kind of big moment. You know how you get a lot of celebrities or actors who say they were, like a 30-year overnight success kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I just started doing, so part of my training at the Psychic Institute had been doing clairvoyant readings. And that was one of the first things I started to do, was I started to do readings with people. As I was working on my own energy field and rewiring things for myself, I started to work. In fact, the first person, I had a little card that I'd made that went in the local shop window. in the village that I was grew up in. And the first person that came through from that card was actually the mother of the local doctor, one of the
Oh,
who had cancer.
really?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
She
wow.
herself was going through cancer, and I'd not announced the cancer thing in the reading when I in the card that I put out there, and I thought, wow, okay, she's been brought in, so I can kind of,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and then it kind of went. I have had all kinds of people over the years with various levels of trauma that have been stuck in their
Mhm.
system, is how I would describe it. And that stuckness in the system has been directing their life flow, or blocking it and
Yes.
causing it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so one of the things that's really come out is I work well with, and it's particularly women, because that's my, that's my body. So I understand that, in helping them get unblocked, not just on a mental level, but finding where the energy is stuck, so
Yes.
that we can release that life force, and they can start to live the life they want to live, be that person.
And it's not only about exercise, is it?
No,
Because the stuck doesn't know. It goes way beyond let's unstick it and exercise. It's the blocks
exactly.
are there stopping. So you're discovering the blocks and allowing those blocks, or the person that's with you, to release those blocks, and then be in the flow with all of that, all aspects of their lives.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it's what I think I really learnt, was how the body isn't this kind of solid physical thing that we have been taught to understand it as. It's a liquid light part of, so when I look at the energy field, the physical body is really just almost a representation of that. So in movement, what you're doing is almost continuing that healing work as the cellular
Wow.
patterns change, yeah, and the bones and joints, because yeah.
And you know what? I don't know if people are watching. If you're watching, welcome here. We're with Melanie Griffith and we're talking. And I'm just going to say this right now. As I'm looking at you, I can see your aura. It's like, as I said that, it got bigger, actually.
I love
It's a bit of a show off.
I love that. No, it's tickling me. I love
Just got bigger as I said it. It's like, okay.
that.
I really can see your aura, and I'm sure people that are watching now, or at, at a later point, will see your aura kind of around you, just so clear and beautiful and luminous.
Oh,
It's really present.
I think it's because we're talking about what I absolutely love, and
Yeah.
it's become my mission to help other women, it thrive in life. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I love that word, thrive. It's just,
Yeah.
not just exist or function or mark time, but actually, be these amazing women out there in the world. As you know, I mean, you are one, and obviously you get to talk to these women as well all the
Well, I feel so grateful and so blessed and humbled that, this show happens, and I meet amazing women just like yourself, coming through and talking and sharing with their experiences, and each so different, and
Yes.
each with the same power of knowing that it is possible to change our lives. We have to do the work. We have to say yes. We have to be open to receive. And it's not always comfortable, and it doesn't always look pretty,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always feel great.
Yeah.
And it's possible.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And it's really, we talk about, there's that phrase, standing in your power, but it really is doing that.
Yeah.
It really is taking a deep breath sometimes. And
What,
mm,
what do you think, Melanie? Because that diagnosis that came to you, and then having, there are no alternatives as far as that was being offered to you. There are no alternatives. This is the way
yeah,
that treatment has to happen. What belief do you think? I know when you got that, fuck it, that's not going to happen. That's not my story. what do you think underneath all of that was the belief that you were really unraveling for yourself? Because you're here, sharing this 19 years, and the conviction that you have that you're healed, it's gone, it's done.
I think
So, yeah, what shifted from a belief?
it was the right to exist. It was the right to exist on some,
Wow, that's so powerful. Let me just breathe that in. The right to exist.
Yeah. I had somehow at some point picked up that it was not okay for me to be here as a being and to be alive as a female. And I, one of the things that in my readings I see past lives and things like that. So there's trails that go back centuries.
Yeah.
And then we've got our collective DNA in the female body.
Yeah.
And I realized that it was that. And this is something that continues today. There are it's a layer, that's layers and layers of existence. If you think, well, it's not that long ago we were, and still in parts of the world, women are vilified.
Well, we were being burned.
Exactly.
We were being stopped in many ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally.
Yeah. And I think it still continues. And I know for me, every day, another layer, another day, another layer. It's
another day, another layer. I love that. Another day, another layer. Oh my gosh, we're here with Melanie Griffiths. I'm going to put your website up here for anybody that's watching. There's Melanie's website. You can really find out about everything that she's offering, classes, holidays. We'll talk about that a little more in a moment. First of all, I would like to play this. I made it the other day. I hope it shows. I'm going to put it on the screen. It's the advert for Divine CEO magazine. For anybody to sign up to easily. It's free. It gets delivered once a month. There are
I love
a little bit of music.
I have to say this, but about Laura actually, because she has this amazing global dance mix on her YouTube channel, which I am going to be sharing because
thank you.
Amazing.
That's one of the songs. One truth.
Yeah.
One mind. One love.
Get into classes. My brain was like, got to get into classes.
Use it in your classes. Yeah. So tell me what it is. You have your own style of class that you give. Let's talk about your exercise, what you give, what you offer. What is your message with this, with exercise and movement for women? Actually, before you do that, because I'm just going to share a little bit about me, because I've just discovered how exercise lazy I am. And after Christmas and New Year, I was like, yes, I've discovered 1980s Jane Fonda on YouTube. And I was like, yes, I had the belt on, lipstick, the leg warmers, the whole lot. But it's like, what is the block there for women? Why? Yeah. And why does yours work? What do you do?
I think the fitness industry, I'm going to alienate loads of people right now. I'm going to say it anyway. It's still run by 20-something males. And I think there's an approach. Yeah, there's an approach that comes through that male way of goal, problem solution goal, that approach. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, if you're an athlete and you're training for a specific event, that works. But I also think it puts people, it disconnects them from their bodies. It doesn't cultivate a nurturing relationship. And it can become a space of beating oneself up to go to an exercise class, or to do any movement. And what I feel and what I discovered is it's building that nourishing, nurturing relationship with one's body. And so movement becomes this sort of exquisite, almost self-massage as you
Right.
nurture the joints and the muscles. And the whole idea of weight loss, which gets bandied around a lot in, for women, is things like that become a byproduct because you've actually connected with your system in such a
Mhm.
way that you're not berating it anymore, and you're not looking at your body and deciding that that's
Mm.
shaving in or moving or whatever. You're enjoying the act of movement. And whether you're doing fast movement or slow movement or static movement or lyrical movement, and that becomes the dominant piece. And so then suddenly you're moving and you're like,
Mm.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. So what's come through for me is replacing the word exercise with movement.
yes,
It's like a whole shift in focus on what this is. It's not because exercise can be like, oh, gotta exercise. Listen
yes,
to me, I've gotta exercise.
yes,
Yes. Whereas movement is, well, I'm moving anyway.
yes,
I'm a moving being. So let's move and have fun.
exactly. And this is what I say to people when, you know, exercise can still seem like a high jump for many people. And so I say, well, look at your body, look at the joints and muscles. And if we were designed to sit still, we wouldn't have all these moving parts. So it's just about
Yeah.
movement. It's just about movement. And that's the way into becoming more active. And I think it's so much more accessible for people. I think, and also the tuning into one's body in a real way, that we get a lot of images on social media and media
Yeah.
about this is what female bodies should look like, and actually everybody's body is different, and then it shifts and changes as we go through life, and that's what should
Yes.
happen for a
Yes.
healthy female body. Yeah,
And energy levels ebb and flow
exactly.
depending upon, where we are, what we're doing, what we've been through,
Yeah,
what health situations, relationship, finances, it all
absolutely.
accumulates, doesn't it?
Yeah, and every time I step onto the dance floor, that is where I am always connecting from, is where am I today? And that's what I communicate to all the students, connect with where you are today. It doesn't matter if you're tired, if you've got loads of energy, you move from that place. And then what is
Mm.
things open up for you in the flow. And for me, music is a big part of it, which is where dance comes
Yes.
from. It's and think, you'll know this. You put a piece of music on that you absolutely you
You
love it, or
have to
it
get
gets
up.
you. Yeah,
You've got to yes.
and that's it. And that's exercise right there. That's movement. So I think a lot of movement gets discounted because exercise has become this thing we have to do.
And that it has to look a certain
Yeah,
way in order to be valid as an
yeah,
exercise routine that's doing you good.
yeah, exactly. And I always say to people, because the biggest question I think I've been asked over the years is, what's the best form of exercise? Everybody wants the
Really?
magic pill. And I say it's the one you're going to stick with. It's whatever you're going to stick with.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't matter what trends or fads the fitness industry are throwing out there. If it doesn't connect for you, you're not going to stick with it. So whether it's like, running up hills or doing a movement class or cleaning your house, or, it's all part of your activity program to keep your body happy and healthy.
Wow. And do you find that people that come to you and to your classes are only coming because they know that there's this stuckness, or is it because what you have to offer is so transformational
I,
because of the journey that you've been on and what you've done? So, or are people coming because now it's movement, now it's fun, it's joy,
yeah.
it's let's feel the body fully.
Yes. I think most people are fairly unconscious to any of the sort of the stuck, or they might sense something, but they don't necessarily know what it is. And they come to the class and they just want to move. And I like to create a very safe space, particularly for women, that there's no competition, there's no judgment, you just come in and have fun. I mean, one of my big words is lefts and rights are overrated. It's like, it's like
And it's very mechanical aerobics, isn't it? In lines and forwards and backwards and, kind of copycat. There's no freedom there.
Yeah. So and I think after people come for a while, they start to realize, it's interesting watching the journey. And I've got different classes, so there are different things going on. But when they first come in, they're a little rigid in themselves, and they start to realize, oh no, I have the information to move. That comes from me. And this is just a selection of movements that are on offer to follow, if you like. So it doesn't become that competitive space or who's in the front row. I take all that out of it because I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And also it keeps you disconnected from your body. And the whole point of movement is to bring you in.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And what I love also on your website is that you have dance holidays. That's just so fab. It's like, I think that's such a great idea because retreats can be incredible, and we can do a lot of kind of revealing of ourselves in a retreat situation.
Absolutely.
And dance holiday for me, that really sparks something of, this is fun, this is freedom.
Yeah.
Going on holiday to dance and enjoy the just the energy of that.
Yes.
That must feel so good.
And you're out of instead of it just being like a once an hour, you're out of the rest of your life for that period of time. So you can really surrender to whatever is on offer and allow yourself to go sort of ebbing and flowing through the growth at your own time and space. So yeah, I've watched them, and it's interesting watching them evolve. And I like to create, like I do in a class, I like to create sort of a container, but a container within which people can kind of shift and change. So, for example, last year's holiday, we went to Crete, and I have the timetable of the classes, but I say to people, you don't have to attend every class. Find your timetable within the week. This is how this is the general flow of how it's going to be going. But if you wake up one morning and think, actually, today I need extra rest, or you are out for the day in your own time and decide you don't want to come and move when you get back, that's all fine. You'll get the healing that you need from just being in this container.
Yes.
So
it's beautiful. Are you doing it this year as well?
Yes, so we've got a holiday to India in October, November. Yes.
Oh, wow. Whereabouts?
Yeah, in Kerala. So it's Palm.
Oh my gosh. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Palm Tree Yoga Center on Kovalam Beach in Kerala.
Wow. How long for?
I think there are 10 and 13 night options. So we've got 2 options at the moment that are available, but yeah. And I've done this one before. And I think one of the cool things about this one, it's sort of like the yoga center has got kind of levels, and the studio space or the movement space is right at the top. And it's set on a hill anyway that overlooks the beach. So when you're moving, you've got this amazing view of Kovalam Beach. So yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Is all the information on your website?
Yes, she says.
For people to book.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That is on there. Yeah. Okay.
I'll be looking at that.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
And I'm actually I think the booking is closed for it now because it's this weekend, but I'm running a wellbeing weekend on the Isle of Wight here, which I'm
Supercharge Your Life.
Oh, no, not that, but yes.
Not that one. Okay. I was waiting for the cue. What's it called?
Oh, yeah. So
I'm really good at this.
No, you're great. I'm thinking, why am I talking about it? They can't book on it anymore.
Oh, they can't book. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Let's talk about this
let's
one.
talk about this. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is what I've created out of my healing from cancer. So the idea with this program is it's 6 sessions of spiritual transformational coaching and healing, where we look at what I call the 6 magic modules, which are movement, mindset, meditation and energy work, mood, meals, and me time. And
Ooh.
these are all the areas that I feel underpin health and well-being. So, and this is what I've kind of come up with to work with people. So it's only 6 weeks, so it's not a long time. So it's not, it will create the blueprint from which people can start to go and do what I did. Or even if it's not a health crisis they're in, they start to be able to recognize all of these pieces make up our health and well-being. And you know, those things that you want to do in life but you're not doing, it's coming from one of these areas. So I work with my clairvoyance and then work with the coaching and healing, and we look at the different areas.
And do you think this is for people, or do you intend this to be for people that are journeying cancer, or is it for anybody that feels they have a medical, it's showing up in their body in some way, shape,
Yeah,
or form?
I mean, my obviously speciality is cancer, but it's for anybody who is experiencing some area where they just can't quite get the hang of, kind of clear things. I'm thinking of one case I had in particular who came to me, and she was going through a very sort of extreme trauma that she wasn't able to shift from. We started doing the one-to-one work. She started coming to movement sessions as well. So she got the energy clearing, and then moving in the body was moving it out of the body.
Right.
And within 2 years, she transformed her life.
Mm. Mm. And I really recognize what you're saying here, because 2 years for someone that's listening, or for me even, sometimes that feels like a long
Yeah.
time. And yet in the big picture of it, it's not, is it?
No,
2 years, it's not a long time to transform your life.
exactly. And I think this is what
We
people
want
forget.
things quick, we want quick fixes, don't we?
Exactly. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think, you know, the world, the Western world is sort of, it gears up to that sort of instantaneous. But when I think about all the layers that we are, it's
yes,
not going to happen in 5 minutes, because
yeah,
you might shift one piece, you know, you might mentally feel different, but it might sit somewhere else in your system. You know, you
yes,
emotionally might be out of balance, and that might need some clearing. And I think it's recognizing, especially when we've got a major health issue, I think that's always an indication that there is a deep seat, something is really blocked somewhere, because we've manifested it to
yeah.
the point that we're like,
That it's in our
it's in our
body,
body.
that it's
Yeah,
showing as a in our
exactly.
body,
Yeah,
yes. Which kind of is the last stage, isn't it? When it's there,
exactly.
it's got to that point where it's showing itself really visibly, and it wants attention.
Yeah. And I always think the irony is people don't you know, because what I learned from this experience is, if you listen earlier, so one of the things that I work on with people is getting them in touch with their intuition and their bodies. That's a big thing. If you listen earlier on the journey, it doesn't manifest to that extent. So I thought,
Right.
I can use the benefit of my experience to hopefully help other people offset major health issues, because they'll be able to tune in earlier.
Before it gets to that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's powerful, isn't it? To listen
Yeah.
is an art and a science
Yeah.
that where there's a lot of noise going on in the world of effect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of distraction, and a lot of, we're being pulled in a lot of directions
Yeah.
of where to place our attention.
Yeah. And I also,
And yeah,
no, I was just gonna say, and I also think we're not encouraged to listen to ourselves. We're because we're, like you're saying, we're bombarded all the time with information. I think that place of centering is underrated. And I know for me, when I get off kilter, which I always do, like any other human being out there, the first thing I need to do, and I can forget, is actually recenter, get rid of everyone else out of my head and heart, and come
Yes.
back in and go, right, okay, what's going on here?
Yes. Because that's where the power is.
Yeah.
That's where we can align
Yes.
with the truth, and we can know who we are and have that incredible information as well of the next step to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And you build, and I think the more you do that, you build the trust in that space. Because that's the other thing, isn't it? People don't trust that. That, you know, we're always looking outside of ourselves for the answer. And actually it's cultivating that internal connection and learning to listen and trusting the information and taking action on it. And then, oh, look, life is working.
Yes. Yes. So I have another question that just came up for me, just that came through because of your personal experience, and when you received that information about your body 19 years ago, and then you said, "No way." Do you think, Melanie, that if that were for someone that would receive that information now, that the approach that you took would be more acceptable in our society now than it was then?
Yeah,
What you said 19 years
absolutely.
ago,
Yeah,
people have more support to go the natural way, to find it in their own way
I think there's
and
a
heal.
lot more information out there as well. I think there's a lot more acceptance. There's a lot more people practicing as holistic coaches. There's just more resources available. But I still,
There's stigma.
yeah, yeah. And I still come across people where I was talking to a friend the other day who's a nutritionist, and she was saying there's still so much out there around cancer where people are not either being guided towards alternative options as well as instead of or as well as whatever however that works for them, and or they're not given the confidence. So
Right.
there's still, I think it's definitely better, and there are people out there who've made it their life's work, who've gone through their own personal
Yeah.
experience like me.
Yes.
But I do think, and this might be a little bit of a cynical viewpoint, I do think that where drugs companies are making money,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it's there's an incentive to keep that loop going for whoever is involved in that. Because if you choose to heal yourself holistically, it can be a lot simpler, and it doesn't involve working with that. So, but I say that carefully because I think everybody's path is individual and unique.
That's absolutely.
And
And
what
and that's about listening also, isn't it? Because we can listen and hear, yes, this is the path for me, and this is what I'm being
absolutely,
shown will be the best for me right now.
yeah,
So it's honoring it. It's really about taking that time, not just to hear this is what you should do and say yes because that's what. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's the art, isn't it, right there, to be able to hear the information and go yes or no. And I don't, and I, you know, obviously I'm invested in my story and that's what worked for me, but that isn't necessarily what's going to work for someone else, that complete holistic path. It might be a marriage of conventional medicine and holistic help. It might
Yes.
be the conventional route, and they're happy with that. And it's just finding that certainty, I think, that, yeah,
Yes. Yes. And that's empowering.
yeah,
Because then it comes from a place of knowing that's it, this is for me, rather than I've been told this is the only way and I'm going to
exactly.
do it anyway.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And there's so much peace in,
Wow. I feel I can see your book coming out, Melanie.
I know it's
Your
here
book.
and here and
Yeah, I
here.
can see it. It's like The book. We need the book with this process in it.
It's funny you say that. I've been doing some sort of extra kind of meditation work recently, and there's I've been listening to something, and at the end of it, there's sort of what comes up is what action can you take today? And every time I see writing the book, and I'm like, okay, you've got to get on with this.
Really, I'm tuned in. You go.
Exactly.
Melanie's 6M. Oh, it's so great. Before we go, I'd like to, I'd really love for you to share for a minute or so. I'm going to put you on the, I'm going to come out, put you on the screen to inspire the viewers who are here and those in the future, if they're in that place feeling uncertain or just stuck, not because of any medical assessment or anything, just in their lives feeling stuck. What would you say to that person to shift it and to take some action to change, to transform their lives starting from now?
I would say the first thing, well, a couple of things actually. I would say sit, close your eyes, and just focus on your breath and start to calm the nervous system down. That's the first thing. And you're making that connection within. And then from there, you can build a meditation practice, which is going to help you feel more centered in yourself and help in making decisions in going forward. And the second thing I would say is get your body moving if you're not moving. And I mean, literally just move the wrists and the fingers, roll the shoulders, just literally consciously get your body moving. And then that will move towards, you might want to add movement. You might be inspired to take up a particular kind of activity. And the combination of those two things is a starting point that you can go to right here, right now. And all manner of things are available from there.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to get moving. I'm now moving. Melanie, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Oh my God,
and for sharing and inspiring me, the viewers, and just sending out a clarion call for the work that you do and the power of this work and moving and self-healing and taking responsibility. We all need to hear this. We all need to know it. And your reminder today, well, it's more than a reminder. It's like, come on, let's get moving. Let's transform our lives.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I've absolutely loved it.